Welcome to another episode of What the Builder Knows, a podcast being produced by Greenwald BC. My name is Colin Herren, and with me today,
I'm Preston Herren.
Preston is my business partner and also cousin. It's a family operation here at Greenwald BC. My wife works here, her daughter's the controller, Lindsay's the controller. Who knows what the next generation might be, but we've been with this game a long time, and today we're wanting to talk to you a little bit about new housing. So as we tape this, it's spring, it's 2025, it's middle of March. You know, the days are starting to see 60 degrees, and what happens this time of year? The phone starts ringing, and what are they asking, Preston?
All sorts of questions. Our primary ask is on, let's say, barns, garages, homes. What do you charge per square foot to build a home? What do you charge per square foot for a garage? What's your typical pricing per square foot for squares on roof?
And why do people ask that question? Because they don't know, right? They're just trying to get ideas. I mean, a lot of people are just calling in saying, hey, you answered the phone fantastic. And so it'd be like calling a car dealer up and say, you know, what's your car's cost per pound, right? Well, car dealers have like, hey, we have a model this for that and a model this for that. And you can go on the internet and you can see it, right? But unfortunately in the building market, custom builders as such as us, they don't have that opportunity. So we thought we'd throw together a quick video that just kind of tells you where we think the housing market is right now, what our typical clients ask us to do, what those costs are, the trends, that kind of thing, and maybe it'll help you educate you a little bit and know if this is an avenue that you want to go down with us. So let's preface that with where predominantly Greenwald builds across the state, but predominantly you handle the market of...
I'm on Beaver Island, Charlevoix County, Emmett County, working on lake shores on Lake Michigan.
Northwest Michigan, right? So primarily Northwest Michigan, primarily vacation homes, primarily happy places, if you will. And so generally those houses are outfitted with nice, because
stuff.
People aren't trying to shortchange their happy places, right? And when you work in Northwest Michigan, let's be honest, it's expensive real estate, so people spend more money there, right? And then when we deal with logistic challenges of Beaver Island, it's a little more there too, right? Now, most of the jobs that I take care of for the company are more central Michigan located. We do southern part of the lakeshore, I've got jobs all over central Michigan, if you will. But so my numbers might be a little lower than yours just because the demographics, people spend different money, but we do lake, some of the houses behind us, they're on lakes, Higgins Lake, those kind of things. People are certainly willing to spend a little more on those. So just to help people out, tell us big houses, little houses, what you're spending and help people understand per square foot because the cost per square foot ranges dramatically in houses, right?
Yep.
Tell me about one of the houses you're building right now. What's one of the houses you're building size-wise and what's it cost?
Okay, so right now we got a home going on Beaver Island. It's on the water, so you have some challenges of permit issues and spending more money because you're dealing with watershed, on Lake Michigan. But think of nice decks, think of nice windows, think of 50-year-old people who've built 2 or 3 times, they've lived a few places.
So they're sophisticated clients.
They know what they want,
Right.
They've lived with good and bad. But, this 1,300 square foot home is costing them a little over $700,000. In the middle of Lake Michigan, but they plan on passing it down to their kids.
Right. So, but again, I heard you say a couple things. They've built before, they've owned before, they're discriminating. So they didn't make every choice that was budget based. Some of them was emotional based, right? I mean, or longevity based. Let's say maybe not always emotional, longevity based, or what they want or how it fits their lifestyle. So this house is more artsy, if you will. And so that house is a different price per square foot than say, just a subdivision house that was built for sale. And because it has more. So, okay, so there's one. Tell me one of the other last big houses you built on the island or even in northern Michigan.
Yeah, some of them. So people get caught up a lot of times on, they call us no matter where you're at, price per square foot. I just want this little 800 square foot home, a single story cottage, and you kind of have to break it down. You got to say okay, well, single story could be the most expensive that you could build because you got a bigger foundation.
More roof, more foundation.
Yep, you build 2 stories, you're going to get more for your dollar.
Yep.
And then the septic field, well, driveway, tree clearing view, it doesn't care how large of a house you build in front of it or behind it.
So well costs the same whether it's a big house or a small house, right? So the cost per square foot on a small house goes up because it has less square foot to divide by. Right.
So you build an 800 square foot home and you might look at that cost per square foot and you're like, well, wow, it's less expensive, but this cost me $550 a square foot. And then you compare it to something else. So sometimes we're not great at giving you a per square foot generalized number. we need more information from you. We need to know, how many bathrooms does it have? What do you want in your kitchen? What do you want inside this home for me to kind of roughly tell you, per square foot? So you look at what Colin's asking about the big home we built. We've built 10,000 square foot homes, engineering, steel, 2 kitchens, 5 bathrooms, steam showers. Is it a very expensive
2 kitchens.
home?
Let's say that again. 2 kitchens.
2 kitchens.
12 foot by 6 foot islands,
But per square foot, it might be close to that $550 mark that we built that 800 square foot home for, right? Because you've done it in mass, you've done it in production mode. You've got all the trades moving, and you've got all the components moving for more square footage. So like remote areas, Lake Michigan permits, mobilization. Sometimes you have a lot of initial costs that gather to a large number, not based upon the size of the home, but relevance of where it's at and who's going to be there and how the material gets there.
So let's just say, because it has 2 full kitchens, now let's knock that number in half, say 5,000 square foot per kitchen. You still have 5,000 square foot of bedrooms and living rooms and the cheaper rooms. I'm not saying those are cheap, but the lesser expensive rooms to divide that kitchen over and to divide the well over and divide the septic and the foundation. And that particular home was 2 stories, or mostly 2 stories. So, your foundation cost per square foot was divided in half, and your roof was divided in half, and et cetera, et cetera. So, we built a home, say, 2 or 3 years ago that was like 1.7 or something. And so, the cost per square foot was like $450. But now that same house would be $550 to $600 a square foot 3 years from now removed, because our costs have seen so much increases. So, where that particular, I don't even want to tell you where it's at, but that particular client, did the deal, was very satisfied, all that. Had they waited 2 years, they would have literally spent, because that was
more
about
money.
A 4,000 square foot house, they would have spent easy $600,000-$700,000 more to get the same house 3 years later. And, yes, we've had a large increase in the last 5 years, 4 years maybe. There's been large increases in cost. But despite what the media is telling you, we're not seeing that slowing. I mean, we're just not seeing the cost slowing. According to the National Association of Home Builders, 2 weeks ago, I was in Vegas. I was with the chief economist, and these are blue chip economists, people that literally talk to the White House and form the Fed and such. And they said our costs, you and me, our costs will increase 6% this year again. Not the cost selling to the public, our costs. We don't make that kind of profit, so we're going to have to pass it on. And this is not assuming any tariffs, any bad juju goes on the economy. So what we tell people in Central Michigan is a basic house. Let's look at a subdivision house. So not a lot of windows on the side, but good stuff. Good foundation, good framing, good insulation. But the way we build it, which in our opinion is a little bit better than a subdivision house. We think that floor starts at $300 a square foot, and that is the floor. And you get a decent house at that with all the good bones, all the good accoutrements, but not the James Hardie cement board siding. You're not going to get steam showers. You're not going to get custom cabinets. You're not that. And so that 300 a square foot number in Central Michigan is the floor, and then it goes up. However, we're building houses that are double that per square foot, and that's more common. The 400, 450, 500, quite common. And this, I talked to a builder out at Vegas. I won't tell you his name. He's from the Traverse City area, great builder. And I asked him how it was going, and I said, what's your cost per square foot now? Because everybody wants to know. And he said, I tell people 450, but I haven't built one under 500 in a lot of years. So, but those builders that we're talking to, you, me, the way we build things, we're custom builders. We're going to be a little higher than the subdivision builder homes per square foot, but that's kind of how I see it. Do you believe, in your opinion, has costs slowed down? Cost increases slowed down?
No. We think the same prices are going to continue to rise on what it's going to cost to build a new home. We can't see that stopping. Even if the market slows some, all of a sudden suppliers aren't going to demand less. We're not going to get less cost from subs.
Yeah, so something dramatic would have to happen in the industry for it to go down. I've only seen prices recede one time in my life, back in the Great Recession. Interesting, and I know this is old data now, but I was with many housers speaking about housing. I'm talking like Joe Tate, who was Speaker of the House at the time, and the director of MISHDA, and those kind of folks. We were all in a meeting about housing, and they informed us that at that time, which is old news last summer, we were 190,000 houses behind in Michigan. That means that they needed 190,000 more houses to be built in Michigan to satisfy our current need. We built less than 20,000 houses last year, so that problem hasn't corrected itself.
Need more housing.
We need more housing. So we do not believe, and there's not more people to build houses, right? I mean, like, there's not suddenly a glut of people coming on the market to build houses. So we don't see that correcting itself, right? And even if people do come on the market to build houses, let's be honest, Anderson windows or Pella windows or lumber suppliers, they're not going to just all of a sudden decide to drop their prices unless the economy got really weird. So whatever today's price is, I don't care what builder you're talking about, tomorrow's price is going to be more. Next month's price is going to be more. Next year's price is going to be more. And we talked in the hallway before we came in here, and you said something like, every time I've thought about a deal and didn't do it, and they called me back in 3 years, it was just more money. You know, it's never, I mean, this is a long history. So whatever today's price is, if it doesn't make sense, we understand that. We'd be happy to talk with you and help you inform. But we just want to let you know that, you know, the floor is 300 anywhere, but honestly, it's like 30% more than that in northern Michigan at least.
375-ish would be kind of your floor.
The floor, yeah. And our floor is a good floor, let's be honest. Our floor is probably
Nice
better.
stuff.
Yeah, right. So I don't want to sound like that's the trailer house version, because it's not, right? But that's not changing. It's not going to go away. And it's, unfortunately, it's, you know, give me the facts. That's the facts. That's, you know, people say, you know, give me the truth. You can't handle the truth. This is the truth, whether you like it or not. And if you find somebody, we find, not to knock any other builder, but we find that if you get a sweet deal, a great price, a low number starting in the door, you have to understand that may not finish your job. So sometimes, you know, one of the tricks in our industry is allowances. And so allowances are the amount of money you get to spend on things. So if we want to show you a low price point, we could say, yeah, we'll do for this money, but you get to spend this on kitchens and this on countertops and this on flooring. That doesn't mean it's going to satisfy your requirements. So do a good job of checking out and saying, oh, I want this kind of flooring, or I want this kind of cabinet, or this kind of counter, and make sure that that allowance satisfies your expectation. Because frankly, I gave a client a job, or I took a job with a client here about maybe a month or two ago, and when I sat down with them at the table, it was like, let's say it's a $225,000 job, something like that. And I explained 40% of that price was allowances. And so she said, how much should I budget to go over? And I said, how much do you want to go over? You know, like, I don't plan on charging more money. And she's like, okay, I don't care either. I want it to be what I want. Well, in the first few weeks, she started selecting her stuff before we got started. And next thing you know, she was even $8,000 over that number. But I would try to make her understand 40% of that price was totally in her control when she picked things out, right? And so we have a selections department. Caitlin takes care of it for us, and she helps with people with every decision, what the pricing of that, how much are the cabinets, and we agree on those allowances, but even that particular lady went over. And I mean, what percentage do you find people exceed allowances or changes as a whole in a job? What's your feel?
A lot of times, if the job isn't like, you know, you have homeowners, you have great homeowners that make choices way out in front, and they pretty much know what they're getting into. It's predetermined before we build it, because like you said, we get builders that come to us and say like, oh, can you step in and finish this? I had my house framed, but the builder that we had come in, you know, he's way over budget, and we need you to finish it. And and I dig why. I'm always like, why? Because I want to learn from this too. So I want to like, okay, well, they didn't really tell us this up front, or the allowances they gave us were way under budget, and there's no way that anyone could have finished it from it. So if we spend more time in our system, what we do is we gather information from the client. They have everything picked out. Not only is the item picked out, but the subcontractor, let's say the plumber, has already gone through, and he already knows what it's going to cost him to put it in there. So when you get to that phase, you're already there. The client knows 90% of, let's say, the total bill before you started putting something in the ground, so then we can more guarantee that price.
So that's more ideal for us and the client. So spending that time, we find sometimes clients are antsy and want to get going, right? But that's why we hired a selections department to do a better job of this. Let's be honest, we've all been in those situations where the client is like, look, I want this, and I didn't know it was going to cost that. It's like, the sooner we could have found that out, the better for all of us, right? So that's why we literally did that. So when these houses don't get finished and we finish them, and I'm not going to name names, but we finished a lot of houses that other people start, they're generally like at the drywall-ish stage. So the framing's been done, the lumber part's done, the roof's done. A lot of times the siding's done, not always. And to be honest, those are the places that don't have a lot of flexibility in cost, like the frame costs what it costs, the foundation costs what it costs. We talked about well and septic and those things. The inside's where a lot of the flexibility and cost. Maybe the sodding and maybe the windows has a lot of flexibility, but the decks, all the interior accoutrements, that's where the cost can really change.
We notice in the details. You get down to nitty gritty, like, we would much rather side a home than put together a 5-step custom kitchen.
Right.
Like, it's way easier to go off a plan and build the box, and then it takes a different mentality of person to want to go inside, a different level of expectation and craftsmanship to finish it. Custom kitchen.
So we have a saying around here that it's like the last 10% of the home takes 90% of the effort, right? I mean, that's where the details are at. So yeah, not to knock any other builders, but we see that. And so just as a caution to people, I would tell you that we don't charge more than we say we're going to charge, like for the pieces that we guarantee. There's pieces we don't guarantee, the things like allowances and such. Those pieces, I mean, I got to tell you, on average, people are more discriminating as they go through the process than not. So they tell themselves, I'll be okay with that. And then when it's like show up time to pick with the plumber at the plumbing supply store, they're like, oh, I want the farmhouse sink. You're like, oh, with the farmhouse sink, you have to have a quartz top or a solid surface top. You can't do P-lam. And you're like, so it's not just a $1,500 sink upgrade.
Then
it's
you
all
need a sink base to put the farm sink
different
in.
Sink base. Yep, nice apron sink.
Trades.
And now you've got a $5,000 or $7,000 upgrade. And then it's like, well, I'm not going to do that without buying a really nice professional faucet. Now you got a $800 faucet instead of $100, whatever, right? And that happens to our clients repetitively. So my advice to a client always is, and whatever the number is, if you have a budget of $850,000, start your contract at $775 to give yourself some leeway to get there. Again, not that I intend to charge you more, but everybody walks themselves down a different path. Once you go to the floor store and you see the better floor, whatever it is, whether it be carpet, LVP, whatever, you're like, well, I want that one. That's nice. And I don't care if I give you $10 a square foot, $5 a square foot, $15 a square foot. If you walk in the door, you say, show me the $10 stuff. Right next to it's the $12 stuff. And you're like, that's nice. I need to have that. Tell me. That just happens. So our advice is always that, changes can be 10% of a contract. So in a custom building world, you kind of need to prepare yourself. Now, I will say I've had some clients that build $1 million, $2 million, $3 million places that don't have changes because, one, they were very honest with themselves. Two, they gave realistic budgets. Like one of my clients, I said, how much do you want to budget for light fixtures if you've done this before? The young lady said, throw $15,000 in. I'm not sure if it'll cover it, but I know it'll be close. And it's like, I've had a lot of homeowners say, throw $1,000 in. Well, 1,000's not going to cover you, but at least this young lady said, I know that light fixtures are important to me. And I don't remember what she spent, but the moral of the story was she was throwing realistic numbers in her budget. We agreed to the realistic numbers. And when that got done, by God, they were really pretty close to their budget because they didn't lie to themselves up front. So it can be done. Just overwhelmingly, there's so much media out there that, I mean, if you're building a home and you drive by a home improvement store, somehow you get an ad on Facebook or your YouTube or whatever that tells you something you got to buy, right? They're good at that, geocaching.
On the front end of this, you give us a plan and we decide to build this box, and there's parameters outside of that box that sometimes are non-negotiable. For instance, let's put in a 100-foot well. Let's do that. You talk to the best well driller there is. He's drilled 45 wells in the past 2 months. On this property, we hit a dry one, right? Like, I couldn't foresee that. This isn't throughout the whole entire build. This is like, let's say the first 5%.
Well, once in a while, there's unforeseens.
Yeah, or like how many steps does it take to get up to that house? Like once you add more than 3 steps, now I need a railing.
Yeah.
So it's like some of these site conditions we can't always figure out, but we do our best of like talking it through, making it known, negotiating it the best we can, and then maneuvering it. Like this particular client, like, okay, we had to drill a second well and we have a lot more trenching. Before we just spend more than the budget, can we give and take somewhere else?
Yep.
Before just increasing costs. Like what do we do? We went from a standing seam metal roof to a high quality shingled roof, and he's right back on budget.
Right. Options, right? So that's the flexibility with a custom builder, right? You can have open, honest conversations. So I would say overall, though, that our clients are more discerning than not. So the numbers we use are based on discerning clients. and that the numbers we reflect are not what I would call starter homes, right? I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to watch the video and say these guys are stinking high. No, we're just telling you realistic numbers for the clients that come to us time and again. And it's not that you can't beat our budgets. It's not that you couldn't get under. We don't price houses by square foot. We price it by the sum of the parts. The sum of the parts is what does each trade cost us based on your expectations, and how many hours of labor and what is our overhead costs, etc. We don't price them by square foot. Just like cars don't price them by the pound. Some cars have leather, some don't have leather, some have Sirius, some don't have Sirius XM, etc. Some are four-wheel drive, some are not. Our house is the same way. The unfortunate thing is, there's not a great process in building with us to know right up front, right? So we do offer planning and budgeting agreements where for a small amount of money we will spend a lot of time with you, design the plan, budget the plan, make sure we understand how any remaining allowances are accounted for, or they're going to be practical to your expectations. Really, our whole goal, we love building good places, but it's to make happy people, right? And making happy people, let's be honest, a lot of that has to do with money, right? And if we're not doing it right. So, so do we think it's going to be a strong housing market in 2025? My personal belief is going to be a little weak. We're still going to build some houses, but based on the mortgage rates and the unsureness, and, as we're taping this, the stock market's kind of tanking right now, into correction mode. We think that the possibility of a weaker housing market, but remodeling is going to be very strong. We believe, that's the forecast. But we think the need is there, so we're still prepared for it. We love to build new houses. We love to build. Our forte is vacation homes, right?
Yep. Waterfront, vacation homes, custom homes.
Yep. The people who love to love their happy place, right? The people who and people tell us time and again that the places we build, when they get there, their heart rate drops, their blood pressure drops, their sense of feeling of belonging just changes. But you got to understand, most of these people, they were not given their money; they have earned their money. And we respect that fact. I don't care if you're a banker, a financial counselor, if you own a business of some kind. I worked for a sprinkler fitter one time. He owns a company that does big buildings, sprinklers. They're all earning their money, and most of them, their whole family's in it somehow. It's all in or all out sometimes. And when they come to a place in their life that they can have a happy place, invest in those things, it means a lot to them. So our job is to service them really well. And so, maybe we're not the builder for everybody. We respect the people that want service, and so we give a level of service. And service is expensive, let's be honest, to have a great team, like we've got 8 people in our office, and have a great team of people that can respond in the office costs money. So just to recap, Beaver Island is 30% more than mainland. Northwest Michigan and all Western Michigan along the lakeshore is always more expensive just because on the lakeshore we have more to deal with. We have eagle permits to deal with. We have critical dune to deal with.
Everything's more involved.
To give an idea, I can get a soil erosion permit in Isabella County for $150 to $200. In Manistee County, it's $600. It's more expensive to work on the Great Lakes for a lot of reasons, and that's just the sum of the parts as we add them up. So, Central Michigan is probably a depressed amount of money compared to other places, to be honest. And then another recap: the bigger the home gets, often the less cost per square foot.
Per square foot number.
So a lot of people call us and tell us we're just going to reel down the size of the house to be able to afford it, and it's like, you may not save as much as you think, because how much would you say the average well, septic, driveway, foundation, and site improvements cost? Minimum.
Just even on a moderate home, at least $120,000.
Right. So, if you're going to build a $500,000 house, the first $125,000 gets you the ground. Not the price of the land, the ground
just the
stuff.
ground. You've already bought the property.
Right. And that's irrespective of whether it's a 5,000 square foot house or a 1,000 square foot house. So you divide that out, right? It changes. And I think that's one of the critical parts. A lot of people are just saying, what if I just built a cozy little house? It's that's great. We love cozy little houses, but there's still a cost to them.
Still expensive.
And then if I build a 4,000 square foot house there, that $100,000 is not near, or $125,000 even.
It's spread out more.
It's spread out, so that's probably part of the problem. So the worst measure of cost of a house is cost per square foot. And I know everybody needs a way to metric it, but it's a terrible indicator. It really is a terrible indicator. Because most of the time we're foaming our houses, right? Spray foam insulation. There are plenty of guys that...
Fiberglass.
or cellulose is the upgrade. Well, we literally have houses that the insulation package is $50,000 to $90,000 for the insulation, right? And so when we give you a cost per square foot that includes that, it's a different cost. So you're really going to have to ask questions. You as the consumer have to ask questions about what does this include? Because builders, let's be honest, we just don't have models sitting on the lot to look at least not custom builders, because people want their dreams. What else is important we tell people about new housing in 2025?
I think about, is it an emotional investment? How long are you going to live there? We kind of stated in the beginning, if you plan on being there 10 or plus years, even in my life, and even when Colin and I invest in something, sometimes we're like, we shouldn't do that, man. I'm right at that threshold. I don't know if I should spend it. 5 years later, we're kicking ourselves. We're like, we should have just did it then. It's going to cost more money. If the interest on the money that you have in the bank or your financial institution isn't gaining, like we're saying this year, 6% above what it cost last year, if you're not constantly adding to that pot, it's never going to be obtainable, reachable by just waiting only. So all I can say, it's like, if you're serious about building a home and you want to build a home, there's never a better time or less expensive time than to build it right now.
I would agree with that. And you and I we own millions of dollars of real estate together. Going to real estate investors. And I can't say this for sure, but all of our investments are in pretty good shape. We're going to offer some for sale here pretty soon because we think the market's right for it. But they will make us money. They probably make us the same as we invested in the stock market or something if we took our money there, except for we're real estate guys, so we invest in real estate. And, we paid, I can remember one particular property, we paid, I thought it was too much money, but you thought it was a good deal. We paid for it. And it turns out, I don't know how many years later, it's a pretty good deal. And looking back, it was like, that felt expensive, but that was not expensive.
It hurt back then.
It did hurt, but now it's worth twice or three times that amount, in a reasonably short period of time. So, you're right, looking back. And so that's the advice to people is, today might seem kind of weird, with the unsuredness that's going on in the market, but we're probably not going to find a better time than now. And in 3 years, the measure will be hard to know, but 3 years is probably going to be a lot higher.
And you'll be happy you did it. You'll have the time to enjoy it. Every year you choose not to do it is a year of your life that you can't use it.
All right, parting thought here from me, and then I'll give you a parting thought. So I just pulled up something. So building material prices, I want you to guess. So this is National Association of Home Builders, 2 weeks old, but they shared it with me. But this is based on U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Producer Price Index. So this is government information. You can decide if you believe government or not. From September 2016 to 2020, how much did material costs change? So in a 4-year period, September 2016. Remember, you became a partner here in 2016 or 2015, right? Yep. So think back in your early years as a partner. How much did prices go up?
You want me to guess?
Yeah, overall.
3 times.
As a percentage, I'm sorry.
Let's say 60%.
So in that 4-year period, prices went up 14%. In the last 4 years, so 2020 to 2024, how much did prices go up? Input costs.
They have at least, so I would say
I'm putting you on the spot.
70%.
So officially statistics are 33%. That's input costs, officially. So, that's 33% on top of 16%. So clearly there's an accelerating cost, right? And these are inputs. So these are inputs that is concrete, steel mill products, power distribution, gypsum material, brick clay, that kind of thing, softwood lumber. What this doesn't, and what you may have been taking account, this does not account for subcontracted numbers, right? So all the raises
just
in labor
and
just raw costs, input costs, building materials only. So yes, we've seen maybe a 40 to 60% increase when you add subcontractors and, actual labor of getting it done, but just building materials increased 33%. So more than double the rate of increase in the last 4 years compared to the previous 4 years. So it's not slowing down. And so the people that bought from us 3 or 4 years ago, they're in good shape, right? So that's what we're trying to tell you. Anyway, Colin Herren, Greenwald BC, Preston, my business partner, my cousin, and all-around good guy that takes care of Northern Michigan. Another episode of What the Builder Knows. We're trying to educate, entertain, and maybe even inform. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.